So on day one of Pokemon Legends ZA's release, the entire narrative has completely collapsed. More and more people are starting to realize how good Pokemon is, how exciting this new release is, and all of the grifters, whether they be Craig the Snake or Kershey or Grums, all of them are on Twitter right now seething their little tiny dicks off. They are livid that fans are lining up and buying Pokemon games. And people keep doing this thing where they're sitting there like, well, actual children aren't playing Pokemon. Like, bro, like they're going to be getting these games this game during the holiday season. So, like, again, you don't see kids go out and buying this stuff day one because they're going to get it for their birthday or they're going to get it on during the holidays, right? Like, again, like, this is just like imagine being a Pokemon hater and trying to gaslight your audience that like, oh, I don't see any children in this crowd, so that must mean Pokemon isn't popular with the kids no more. Like, bro, I remember when people were saying Tangled was bigger than Pokemon, and that's all the kids cared about. And what happened? Tangled is shit, it's gay, it's woke, and Pokemon's bigger than it. Like, what exactly was Tangled supposed to do? I'm sorry, no. Frozen, yeah, I actually really like Tangled. What exactly was Frozen supposed to do to compete with Pokemon? Like, the answer is nothing. There was nothing that Walt Disney's Frozen brain could come up with that could possibly surpass the biggest brand in the world. And that's been kind of the reoccurring thing, like every single Pokemon release. Like this bitching was old and tired when Scarlet and Violet came out, and it didn't really amount to much when that game went on to be this huge, like multi-million seller. One of the best-selling Pokemon games ever. And now we're seeing Legends ZA, which is a follow-up to the extremely beloved Legends Arceus, kind of following the same template where a lot of grifters were seething about the way these games look, the way they play, trying to gaslight you to thinking Digimon or like, I don't know, like Pow World was going to be more successful than it. And it's just like, bro, Pow World has been out for like a couple of years now. It couldn't compete with Scarlet and Violet, and it's definitely not going to compete with Gen 10. You can seethe about Pow World all you want, but everybody I know like drop that game within like the first weekend, like that's the reality of the Power World thing, is that like it was popular with online grifters, VTubers and the like of that, but had no real momentum behind it. People don't actually like playing the game. And that's the reoccurring problem that these people keep having when it comes to talking about Pokemon, is that all of these people like the games, like all the people who buy Pokemon like the games. And you can keep like acting as if they're nostalgia blinded fanboys all you want, but the reality is, the common cope for Pokemon haters is immediately like trying to say that Gen 1 designs were better. That's something we've been hearing for years now, is that back in my day, I liked the Pokemon designs. Yeah, because you were a child, you degenerate. It's like there's no substance to any criticisms of Pokemon. Like if you genuinely think the series peaked with Gen 1, like you were never a Pokemon fan, you didn't stick with it, you don't know what you're talking about, honestly. You never experienced Gen 2, you never played Gen 3. Like it's like it's just so completely off base and delusional that like whenever someone says it, like you just have to laugh at them. Like you don't they don't know what they're talking about. And that's it's kind of shocking that we're still in this position where we're still seeing people like complain about the way these games look. In fact, I'm seeing people complain about like the way like the Game Boy Advance games looked. Like, oh, the graphics weren't good looking back then either. Like Pokemon's always been shit. And like meanwhile, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were the best-selling games on Game Boy Advance. Like I only had a Game Boy Advance because of those games. Again, like this isn't complicated. Graphics don't matter. Like, I don't understand how this is like a reoccurring talking point in the gaming community about how graphics faggotry is like killing video games and that overblown budgets are unwarranted. And then you look at Pokemon, which is the exact polar opposite, which has a very tightly controlled budget, a great release schedule, like consistently releases quality games, and these people come out and like spurg at it. Like, oh, how dare they not have a bigger budget? Yeah, because they don't want to be Naughty Dog. They don't want to do what PlayStation Studios are doing, where they spend like 5, 6, 7, 8 years producing a slop product that nobody is going to remember or talk about. Like it's kind of remarkable, honestly, how we can still, over the past couple of days, just how much nostalgia I've seen for Gen 6 and Gen 7. People who grew up with those games really, really love them. And I personally don't care for Gen 6. It's my least favorite generation, but like it's kind of shocking how my least favorite Pokemon generation still has a lot of soul to it because, like Kalos is a beautiful region. It has a lot of like interesting iconography. It has like a lot of good Pokemon actually. Coming back to it, I kind of realized just how many Gen 6 Pokemon that were in like that I just really really like. But like, I just didn't process that because I hated like, the actual core experience of playing X and Y. So like, when you go back and experience things like this, like you really get this sense that Pokemon's absolute low point, Gen 6, is better than like most AAA productions like their entire history. Like the fact that they could make something like Legends ZA and make it this engaging follow-up to X and Y, like it really showcases, I think, what makes Pokemon so special is that they're able to create this world that people just find relatable and love and want to explore and like play in, and they just keep evolving it to the point where it's like one of the most versatile and like consistently high quality video game franchises on the planet. Like the simple fact of the matter is, you can't really name any other video game franchise that gets consistent new releases every 3 years, plus spin-offs, plus like an animated adaptation, plus like plus the TCG. Like you don't have anything that's on the same level of success and popularity as Pokemon. Call of Duty is the counterpoint example that a lot of people utilize, but a lot of people don't realize that Pokemon is higher quality than Call of Duty. That Pokemon is its own unique brand, that it's merchandisable, that it brings in way more of an income than COD, which is only popular because of the generic military man thing. Like Pokemon is just so much laughably better than Call of Duty that it's honestly kind of embarrassing. And it's something that the gaming industry just can't bring themselves to admit because acknowledging Pokemon's success would be acknowledging that the entire PlayStation nation was built on a lie. Like the idea was that Pokemon was only popular with children and that it would fade away with time, when in reality, it eclipsed Final Fantasy in popularity very quickly. It was bigger than Dragon Quest very quickly. It was the biggest RPG franchise in the world and still is. And yet we're still in this like period where people just like they want to put Pokemon in its own category and not address it as like a serious RPG and say that like, it's for kids or like that it doesn't count. Like, you just see people like kind of bamboozling their way through this. But the reality is like Pokemon is as big as it is because it's so much more consistently high quality than all the other slop that precedes it. It is better than Ultima. It is better than WoW. It is better than StarCraft. It is better than Grand Theft Auto. It makes more money than all of that, like probably combined, honestly. So with like that being said, like the coping and seething about this franchise really needs to stop. Like these boomers are embarrassing themselves. They really are genuinely upset that this game is doing well and that people are enjoying it because it just flies completely in the face of their grift. This is something that was not supposed to happen. They thought that Pokemania was over in the 2000s, but in reality, it never really went anywhere. Because I can tell you that I never stopped being a fan of Pokemon throughout the 2000s. All that happened was that I was screamed at for liking it for so long that I just learned not to talk about it openly. And you have like probably have millions of people all over the world who did the exact same thing. And now we're adults and we're telling other people that, yeah, it's okay to like Pokemon. there's nothing weird about it. It's a great IP. Like, you failed. That's the reality of this situation, is that you completely failed to kill Pokemon. Nintendo beat PlayStation back in the 90s. Pokemon eclipsed everything that Sony did with that console, and there's just nothing you can do to change that fact.